Hi everybody, it's Claire back with another art journal video, and I'm going to be drawing a face in my small, oh my gosh, that's a good start, isn't it? A small craft journal today. So I generally, as a rule, will map faces out before I paint them or draw them into my journal in pen. I'm still not mega confident drawing faces, and I think sometimes they can take a scary turn. But drawing them in pencil first is a great way to make sure that you feel a little bit more happy with the face before you commit to drawing in pen or adding paint. And another thing that I like to do is find a face that I like, that I've drawn before, and often use that as a reference really. So kind of copy and remind myself of the things that I need to add. I think this is a really good thing to do when you are learning, when you're practicing, because you're then developing those muscle memory skills that you can take forward and build on. So don't worry about using reference images or a particular page that you like as a reference for the page that you're doing. I don't really think that's a problem at all. So sketching this out in pencil, and then when I'm happy with what I've done, I then go in with my Posca pen and outline it. So here I'm just adding in the hairline. I've had people comment and say that when they add hair, that's when it can go a bit crazy. I do know what you mean. I find doing hair like this kind of long flowy hair is quite an easy thing to do. But as for drawing hairstyles and things, I don't know. I think keep it loose is what I would say. Don't try too hard to make it look like a particular style. Just go for a look of hair. But yes, I do know what people mean when they say that when they add the hair, it goes a bit strange. But yeah, I find doing this sort of long flowy hair is a great way to make the hair look good, and also you can kind of create space that you can then journal into, and you can write on the hair and you can do funky things on the hair. So this is a way that I like to do this. So I'm using quite a fine Posca pen here. I'm just having a look what it is. It's a PC1M. These ones can be a little bit scratchy and can splatter sometimes if you're not careful. Just a fine sort of splatter, but even so it can be a little bit annoying, so I tend not to press on too hard when I'm drawing with this. The reason I'm using Posca pen to draw on my face is that when I do add some paint and some colour, I'll still be able to see these lines through, and I can go back in and add them back after I've finished. So I'm adding in all my features. You see, I'm just going over the lines that I drew before, starting to add some shading as well. And then again, just referring to that reference drawing, because I think sometimes, I don't know, I don't know whether it's my age or stuff, I just can't remember things. So I think, you know, just don't be afraid to use other images to help jog your memory when you're drawing things like this. And then I'm holding my pen quite loosely here and just sketching in these wavy lines for the hair. And also, I think the other thing is just don't be too hung up on getting it right. Your art journal should be a really safe place where you can experiment and try new things. So here I've got a water brush with just water in, and a water brush with some black ink in it. It's Winsor & Newton Indian ink, black Indian ink, and I'm just kind of using the water brush to pull that ink out. So going over where I've drawn my shadows, and I'm using this Indian ink in my water brush just to add a little bit of shadow colour in there, just to darken up those shadows a little bit. So my page didn't have, sorry, excuse me, page didn't have any gesso on or anything like that, so I am just going straight in here with the water brush and the Indian ink, which does mean that once you've committed to adding that colour, there's not a lot you can do about it. You've just got to go with it. So one or two areas it might have gone a little bit dark, but actually that doesn't matter because it just adds a bit more definition to the face. So here I'm going in with Sage from Dina Wakley Media and just adding some of that to the top of my page. Adding the background around my face. This is something you'll have seen me do before. And I think when you've got quite a large face like this that you've drawn onto your page, it's quite easy to add the background around it. So I'm going to create a kind of ombre effect here going down the page. So I'm going to use some fur as well as the sage at the bottom of the page and kind of blend the two colours together where they meet in the middle. Then here I'm using the Done Is Better stencil from Dina Wakley and a bit of buff and just adding some text onto that background. Next I'm going to be using syrup and adding some colour onto the hair too. And then I'm using some of the buff that's left over and mixing it with some of the syrup that's on my brush and just adding some highlights into the hair and just creating a bit of difference in the colour here, adding some lighter areas. And now I'm just going in and adding those details back into the hair again. And here you've got to make sure that your paint is really dry, otherwise your pen will not work and you run the risk of stopping it working altogether if it gets too much moisture into it. Here I am using my water brush again with the Indian ink and just adding some darker sort of lines onto the hair. It does dry a little bit lighter, so You see it's not quite so in your face. So next it's time for the highlights again. I'm just referring to that reference picture that I did and I really liked. Adding the whites of the eyes in and the catch lights. These are what really bring your faces to life. So another thing that I sometimes like to do is to add some pink cheeks onto my faces. It's just a bit of a quirky thing. I don't really know why. Here I'm using magenta, and then I decided that that was too much of a dark pink, so added a little bit of carnation to it, just to lighten the colour a little bit. And I think I preferred how this looked, but I did dab the paint while it was still wet using a wet baby wipe just to lift a bit of the pink away. And then once it was dry, I just roughly outlined the cheeks a little bit. So I'm not actually rubbing the page here, I am just dabbing. Yep, and then just outlining those again. And then I think it was time for me to write my words. So I'm going to write the words in this space on the left-hand side of the page. And as I said earlier, sometimes I do like to write in the hair as well. So doing the hair like this does give you space for doing some journaling. You could even go in and do some asemic writing on the hair if you wanted to do some more journaling in there too. So I didn't sketch these words out first. I'm just kind of going in and freehand just writing these. This is something I often tend to do as well, is once I've written them in, is then I go back and go over the letters a little bit more, just to darken some parts of the letters up so that they do stand out a bit better. And then finally, I'm just using the Ancient Gloss Spray, which I gave a really good shake. And I'm just doing some almost like highlights on the hair, using the stem to paint some lines on. This Ancient Gloss Spray is so pretty. It's so sparkly. So there we go. That was my finished page, just playing with drawing a face. I hope you've enjoyed watching me do this. Yeah. It was lots of fun, and I do think definitely the more you practice, the easier it gets. But I'm not saying that I've cracked it. Anyway, thanks for watching, and I hope to see you again soon.